Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on AI Pro, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Liverpool 1, Tottenham Hotspur 1 in the Premier League from Anfield are Dave, Hendrick and Hari Sethi. Dave, I've had a little chat with Harry, but haven't had a word with you yet. We were talking about our level of deflation and where we'd mark it. Harry, a little bit lower than me. I still sort of have this feeling that we needed City to cock up royally and lose a match or something spectacular like that if we were going to win anyway. So I'm kind of a little bit in the middle with it. Where's it landing with you immediately after the whistle is blown?
Look, we knew the title was the long shot of the quadruple that we're chasing because we've just drawn too many games this season. It's that simple, you know. The title wasn't lost tonight. If we do fall short in the title, it was lost pre-Christmas when we just drew too many games and we had some disappointing losses. There's still a possibility, of course there is, because City have 4 games left. They've got what's now a trickier test against West Ham, who can still get 6th and get Europa League football, but will need to win probably all 3 of their games. So West Ham will now be motivated for that game as opposed to just putting out a team of reserves if they'd had the Europa League final 3 days later. So that one just became more difficult for City midweek. I still think Wolves can cause them trouble because Wolves have caused bigger teams trouble this year. They got a 2-2 draw at Stamford Bridge today. We saw how difficult it was for us when we went there. City beat them at the Etihad with the most blatantly ridiculous penalty of the season. So, look, there's still games there where City can drop points. We knew this was going to be a potential banana skin for us coming off the high in midweek, but with a lot of tired legs. And while there was a lot of poor performances today, it's very hard to fault, you know, the lads that started in midweek and played, you know, large chunks of that game and then had a poor one today. It's very hard to fault them coming off, you know, that comeback against Villarreal into this. You were bound to get a couple of iffy performances. It just is what it is. Credit to Spurs. They did defend well, but I'm sorry. We wasted so many good opportunities in the first half where they tried to play it from the back and we took it off them within 25 yards of their goal and then just gave it back to them. So we're the masters of our own demise tonight. But it's a point. We'll take a point. It's not what we wanted, but like I said, if we do fall short in the title, it wasn't because of what happened tonight. It's what happened earlier in the season.
You know, Harry, that, like I say, I'm just reluctant to give up the sliver of hope because that's all it was anyway. As Dave says, this was the longest of shots. And as I said earlier on, we need City to lose a game regardless. So, I mean, I'm still kind of hopeful that one of those games may present a challenge to them, and hopeful that we can get wins in our last 3. That might be enough. You know, who knows? But the hope is still there to an extent. I agree with Dave when he says that we're the architects of our own downfall here today because it just wasn't incisive enough. We relied on, you know, a great bit of incisive play, but at the end of the day, a deflected shot to get our goal. There just wasn't enough, I thought, dead-eyed calmness from us in attacking situations. And I think that was kind of really the story of the game.
Yeah, no, I was pretty happy with the level of intensity throughout the game, to be honest. In terms of, I hear what Dave's saying around sort of the on the ball performance of a couple of those players who played in midweek and were sort of instrumental into us sort of getting back in that game, and sort of, if you were judging it harshly tonight, you would say they were off it, and there were a few of them there, and I think the sheer abundance of crosses that ended up we ended up resorting to sort of illustrates that a little bit. But I think I'd more agree actually with Dave's point around, in the first half it felt like with that pressure that we were putting on Spurs, there were a number of chances we had where we did turn the ball over, they panicked or they made an error, and we just didn't we just didn't convert one of those into a really goal scoring chance even. It felt like we sort of gave the ball back to them and made it a bit easy for them to defend or to clear the situation. So given we know what Klopp and the coaching team work on, and sort of how that is the bread and butter of how we create at times, or was anyway, at the start of Klopp's sort of tenure at Liverpool. I'm sure they'll be very disappointed that they didn't make more from those opportunities. But you know how it is with these games against North London teams, Trev. It always feels a little bit harder for me because the WhatsApp just lights up, unfortunately. So
yeah, I always wince when I think of you in these situations with your assorted inverted commas mates coming at you from very fair,
the Spurs rabble are a little bit sort of more respectful, to be honest. I think it's they sort of understand that, a couple of the people who piped up were actually sort of shocked that they were taking the draw quite early on, although they could have sort of nicked it at the end. But it's usually the red contingent of North London that are trapped in quite a sort of a strange universe. At times.
They do reside in an odd world, bless them. And just to put a little bit of statistical meat on the bones of what we've been saying here, all three of us. We had 22 efforts, but again, to sort of underline with one of those old sort of highlighters you used to have.
How many of those were blocked, Trevor?
Yeah, but three attempts on target, Harry, at the end of the day. So, I mean, that's the story of the match right there. Just not clinical enough, and sometimes you will pay a price there. And I think we have to hold our hands up and say that they've played a very, very effective strategy and could easily have nicked the game. We're standing off Harry Kane there at the end, and I'm thinking, really? So look, we owe it to our listeners to get on with the usual format, and not get too bogged down in the emotions too early on, because nothing is decided yet. Let's absolutely underline that. And Jurgen went with Konate alongside Van Dijk, and he went with Henderson in midfield, along with then I think everyone else in that lineup is probably what it would be in Jurgen's first team. And there's an argument that this was his first choice 11, or would be his first choice 11 going into a big game. Maybe Joel, who knows? It depends. He makes a call on the day. It's not always immediately apparent to me why he goes for Konate over Joel Matip, I have to say. But that was his call today. I don't know if there's a huge amount of mileage to be gotten out of that, but I want to give both of you an opportunity to comment on the Red selection. But we'll get you to do that quickly ahead of what we say about Spurs. And Dave, I'll start with you just on them, and I'll come back to Harry. I know both of you have done shows looking ahead to this game. Like I say, feel free if you want to mention anything about the Klopp selection. But they went with Romero and Dyer and Davies. They had Emerson, Betancourt, Højbjerg, Sessegnon, Kulusevski, Kane and Son, and they went with the three across the back and the wing backs, and they were very solid and rigid, and probably exactly how you'd expect them to line out under this manager, with the greatest syrup in football. To be fair to him, it is a tremendous thing. It's like a thing that has a life of its own. When you flash back to pictures of him at the end of his playing, fucking in the middle of his playing days, And there's little Bobby Charlton strands just
whispering around his head,
just refusing to give up the ghost as they plaster across his bald pate. And now you look at him, he's like fucking Homer when he gets the minoxidil. It's remarkable.
So well conditioned as well, Trev.
So well conditioned.
And that's a man that got a second chance in life with hair and wasn't giving it up too easily. No, that's a high end hair transplant. That's not like the thing Rooney got the first time where it all fell out on him.
I have a theory about this. I have a theory. I think Rooney's the richest man in the world, but refuses to pay for quality hair transplants, because otherwise, how do you explain the shit that he had on top of his head for years by comparison with the flowing locks of our Italian pal there? Just to wrap it back into what I was talking about, I'm looking at the bench there for Tottenham today. They've got Sanchez, who came on, Winks, who came on, Rodon. They've got Galini, Bergwijn, who came on as well. Lucas Moura, who most people would be familiar with as a kind of a threat, potentially. White, Scarlett, Matthew Craig. I don't see that he'd have gone with anything other than what he went with today, but then what do I know? What was your take on it? And is this the lineup you had seen? And more to the point, it seems to be the shape he's just going with, right?
Yeah, well, he likes the 3-4-3, because when they lose possession, it becomes a 5-4-1. The wing backs become full backs, the wingers become wing backs, and then the two in midfield just drop a little bit deeper in front of Eric Dyer, and it works for them. It's one of the reasons that he prefers to play 3-4-3 over a 3-5-2, which was primarily his system at Juventus. It's because when they lose the ball, he feels like he can get more of a shape out of them defensively. It was exactly the team that was expected, because Matt Doherty's injured, Sergio Reguilon is injured. Those two probably would have been the starting wing backs tonight. With those two out, this is what he has. They're also missing Tanganga and Ollie Skip, so that's why you're seeing Harvey White, Dane Scarlett and Matthew George Craig, three kids, on the bench. Not great options for him there, but absolutely the best team he had available. As far as we go, my assumption is the reason Konate played is because he's an awful lot quicker than Joel Matip, and the thought was them on the counter-attack with Heung-min Son. You want more pace to cover for Trent because he's not getting any protection from the right side of that midfield. So I think that's why Konate has started. I did originally think Matip would start, but then the more I thought about their shape and how they play, Konate makes sense. The midfield is what I expected tonight. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right midfield, but it's the midfield he went with. And the front three was the front three I expected. And unfortunately, only one of them really showed up tonight.
Yeah, I think that's a point that needs to be made early and often, is that, you know, we were looking to our two most well-established, most prolific stars tonight to do something big on a big stage. The pressure on them is relentless and endless and constant, and it's unfair. And
nobody plays more football, Trev. Nobody plays more football than Salah and Mane. Them boys had to go off in the middle of a season, play an international tournament, play every single minute of every single game, right through to a final that went to extra time and penalties. Then they went and they played that World Cup qualifier, which again went to extra time and penalties. Anybody going out of their way to slander either of these two boys, to suggest that either of them shouldn't get the contracts that are potentially out there for them, that they don't deserve them, that they need to be dropped, have a word with yourself. Seriously, have a word with yourself, because those two lads, since they joined this club, they never moan. They turn up week after week. They play every single game. They're absolutely relentless. And even today, like when things weren't going for them, they were still trying. Like they were still putting in the work.
They never hide, either of them. Never hide.
There's other lads that do hide, not necessarily in our team, but you know, around the league. There's lads that, you know, when they're not playing well, they start hiding. Salah and Mane aren't that. They're always showing for the ball. They're always harrying defenders. They're dropping back. At one point, Salah sprinted 60 yards to break up one of their counterattacks and get in front of Heung-min Son when Son got one-on-one with Konate. So I don't want to hear from anybody on social media slander that Salah needs to be dropped or that his performances in 2022 haven't been great. Sure, he's not scoring the same number of goals, but nobody could sustain what he was doing pre-Christmas, and he has just been run into the ground he has been absolutely run into the ground. So look, Diaz was I thought excellent tonight, and the two boys, it just didn't work out for them. It wasn't that they were hiding. It wasn't that there was any lack of effort. It's just they just look shattered. The two of them just look shattered. And as I said earlier, I'm not going to sit here and criticize either of them because of what they did in midweek in that comeback. Both of them warrant a pass for today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Harry, perfect place to bring you in, man. Again, your take on Spurs, the lineup, the approach, anything in general about them. And if you want to make a comment on the Reds lineup, feel free.
Yeah, nothing surprising at all from Spurs. Absolutely, sort of based on the players they have available, how Conte likes to set the side up, sort of figuring whether or not he would be tempted to tinker that at all at Anfield. You sort of understood how his approach would be, given sort of the importance of the game as well. So no real surprises there. On the Liverpool lineup, yeah, I think that's probably spot on Konate. That I thought he was included because he had that burst of extra pace to deal with some of those transitions, and you know how dangerous Son can be on the counter for them, and Kulusevski as well. So I thought that was just sort of the only reason why he came in, to be honest. But obviously the level of both of them, Matip and Konate, is so high that you don't really see too much of a drop off in midfield as well. Yeah, given the rotation that we've seen, that was what I expected as well. And perhaps sort of Naby could have been introduced a little bit sooner, given the fact that it did feel like we needed some sort of midfielder who was going to just try and dribble at the Spurs defence directly, sort of try and cause a little bit of chaos that way as well. But there were no real surprises for me in terms of sort of the team that Liverpool went with. And just can only echo what Dave's saying there around. I mean, I found myself plenty of times sort of just willing Mo to sort of rediscover one of those moments, a top corner finish, or some sort of a magical sort of bit of skill or things like that. But you do find it really hard to begrudge either of them. I mean, they've put in such an incredible shift. You think about the amount that Sadio has done over the past 12 months for club, for country, especially sort of the weight that he's carried and sort of the performances that he's put in, the pressure moments that he's delivered in, how great he's been recently as well. And so much of Mo's all-round game is still absolutely outstanding as well. So you find it hard to begrudge either of them. If I was actually sort of talking about a player I was more disappointed in, I was hoping it felt like the sort of game that you can imagine, and we've seen in the past, Bobby coming off the bench and sort of popping up with one of those moments, and I was hoping that Jota might have it in him, as he has done plenty of times for us this season. So if I was going to be disappointed with any of them, it was probably Jota, probably a little bit unfairly.
He was poor when he came on. Yeah. No, he was poor when he came on. I'm surprised he didn't go for Divock.
Same. It seemed to be the crowd were even telling him at one point.
I think Divock's been in better form than Jota of late as well. Actually.
Yeah, all round game for sure. The ball's sticking better with Div. He's using it better. Jota is like a bull in a china shop. He's only got one idea, which is to run directly from whatever he's at straight at the goal. That's all he's got.
I'm enjoying that, actually. I'm not sure if you've noticed it, Trevor, and it's a minor tangent, but in each of Jota's recent games, he's done this thing where we talked about his dribbling style, where he just runs in a straight line. But he's also got this moment in him quite a few games in a row now where he'll do that, but he'll just run straight into a player. And there'll be a foul given.
Yeah, constantly. One thing you would have to say about Diogo Jota is he's direct, but I mean, Luis Diaz showed you today the benefit of not being fucking straight line direct, Diogo. You are allowed to turn. And you saw the feet on Luis Diaz as he drove at that defence today, cutting inside, cutting outside. He actually loves to be at full pelt, maybe slightly always on the verge of out of control, because that's where his technique comes in when other players would have a bad touch or a bad nudge of the ball. He always just seems to do the right thing. And again, it's and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I thought I read the other day that actually, aside from Mo and Mane, I think Diaz has played a ridiculous amount of football apparently over the last 12 to 18 months. I think he's up there
with any player in Europe at the moment. So the fact that he's still putting in this shift into a new team is pretty remarkable as well.
It is, and I read some really interesting stuff about him and his background that I didn't know in recent times, and he just is an inspirational kind of a kid, I have to say. He genuinely is. You look at pictures of him when he was, he's basically an upright elastic band. I mean, he's the slightest of characters, physically speaking, and the strength that he has is remarkable. You talked about Flacco before, Harry. This is the ultimate Flacco right here,
yes. Yeah.
Lads, do you mind if we just take a minute? Because I think, we're approaching the end of the season, regardless of how this pans out in the Premier League. One of the most constant refrains we've had, the three of us, when we've done shows together, is the refereeing performances. And Michael Oliver is the best with a TM beside it in a little circle. That's what we're told. That's what we've come to believe. That's what the PR machine has spun in our direction. And maybe we saw it with our own eyes in his early performances. I look at Michael Oliver now, and do you know who I think of? I think of James Van Der Beek. Do you know who that is? That's the guy who had the world at his feet because he was the up-and-coming star of the biggest show on TV called Dawson's Creek. And now look at what James Van Der Beek does as an adult actor who had everything in front of him. Michael Oliver, to me, is a guy who had it all and has he should be some sort of, new version upgrade of Kalina. He's just not. He doesn't see stuff. He has all the same flaws as most of the referees that we see on a regular basis. And, today was no exception. I thought it was a poor showing by him again.
I think the disappointing thing, and it's not just Michael Oliver, but yeah, I think you're right. You do expect a little bit more from him, or sort of you'd come to based upon sort of his past showings. But it really does seem as though very, very few referees. I'm sure they get together each and every season and talk about sort of different types of games and how to referee them and how to deal with different situations. And it does feel very much like, sort of woe is me, big club talking about this sort of situation. But we've seen how many sides come to Anfield with a tactical plan to sit, to counter. That's absolutely fine. Of course you can do that. And there's plenty of stuff in the game around sort of wasting time and those tactics, and we've seen them on display very much over the past sort of 4 or 5 games. But it feels as though none of those refs are comfortable with going. We've seen them point at the watch, Trev. We've seen them point at the watch when time wasting is going on. But you get to the end of the game and there's barely any time added on.
They forget to add the time,
or things like that. And actually, I think one thing they're going to have to get a little bit sharper with, and it's pretty tough for them to deal with, I suppose. But we have seen it not too much in this game, but we've seen it quite a few times recently this season. I think is players are now aware that if they go down and hold their head, the game will be stopped. And it's happening more and more and more, and it's sort of a tough one to crack down on. Let's be honest, because you want to give the right level of care to players who do have genuine head injuries. But I think you're seeing it a lot now where players go down and they know, if I hold my head here, he's going to have to stop it.
I think it's a brilliant shout. HIA shithousing is a new category of really dodgy, deviant behaviour that an awful lot of players are indulging in. And I agree with you completely. I think it's a very good shout to make. We should probably get stuck into the details of this then, I guess. Dave, let's start you and I with the first half of the first half. I thought we did really well. There was great early pressure, especially on that left-hand side flank with Diaz and Robbo. Actually, more of Robbo later on, because I'd be interested to get your take on that substitution and where you think it came from. Probably just a lad, I imagine, who was a bit gassed after ridiculous efforts pointed out by the manager in recent games. On 2 minutes, we did have the first effort, which was a Sadio shot from distance, pretty much straight at Lloris. Then 6 minutes, there was a Son shot that Ali saved, and then a follow-up that Ali saved, but it wouldn't have counted either of them because they were both off. I thought Trent did brilliant in a 1v1 against Kane on 9 minutes. Really good stuff. And again, he's sort of stuck his hand up in that area where all the Galaxy brains have been questioning his ability, I think, in recent months, and really said, honestly, you haven't a clue, lads. He constantly winning 1v1s against these big name attackers where there's a lot of pressure on our defense, or they're launching counters. I think it's great to see, Dave. I have to say, I'm going to take you through another few little incidents, and you can go back on that or not if you want. 10 minutes in, we had a break. Mo's shot was deflected. It was a corner. 11 minutes then, Højbjerg helped the ball into Kane. And Henderson actually puts in a great covering block tackle with a sort of a sliding effort. 19 minutes, there was a good 1-2 with Mo and Henderson, led to a corner, which wasn't given by the best TM. Couldn't have gotten a more clear decision, and his line though as well, honestly, remarkable. Thiago's pass on the deck when he was lying down, having fallen over, sets up an attack in 21, which led to another corner from that one. Virgil got up from a header, but it was well off target if we're being honest. And on 23, great bit of play, ended up with a Trent shot on that right-hand side of the box, a diagonal shot over the top from just outside with a bit of power in it. And then he follows that up on 25 with a great bit of cover versus Son this time. So that's a fairly decent summation, and basically all we've seen there is, okay, they possibly have something in a counter, but we are absolutely taking the game to them, and no matter what we seem to be doing, whatever we're doing there, we're not registering the shots on target, and that is pretty much the pattern as it continued, Dave.
It is. We were pressing well, we were winning the ball back, they were gifting us the ball at certain times. Their plan became very clear very early. Every time they got the ball, they looked for Kulusevski. He tried to run Robbo down the line. If he couldn't do it, he turned in field, gave it to Kane. Kane lobbed it over the top, and Son went running after it. And that's basically all they had to offer. But, it was still dangerous because it's still really good players involved. But I thought in that early stage, I thought Trent defended brilliantly a couple of times. And you've highlighted them there. I thought his 1v1 work against Son and Kane today was exceptionally good. And we'll be talking about, the part of his game that wasn't great today, which was the attacking part. But I thought defensively, I thought he was outstanding today, to be honest. I thought him and Konate locked down that side for the most part, and I will come to their goal, but I don't think that goal is on either of them. Look, we were establishing ourselves as dominant early in the game, but they were still just looking dangerous on the counter. And I think that's what we all sort of expected, that we'd dominate the ball, that they'd try and hit us on the counter. They wouldn't commit too many forward. They'd bed in. They'd be awkward. They'd throw themselves in front of shots. And that pattern set itself out from very, very early on. And you would like to see us be a little bit cleverer. Like, there was an awful lot of ball in the right half space, in that little number 10 pocket that Henderson was picking up. And you'd just like to see him be a bit more aggressive in what he was doing. He's far too happy to just lay the ball off. That game tonight was screaming out for Naby, someone who could pick the ball up and drive at those midfielders, drive at those defenders, because when all you're doing is collecting the ball and shifting it to one side or another, all that defence is doing is shuttling one side and then the other and just waiting for a cross. Whereas if we could have got someone to just run at the teeth of that defence, even if it was a thing where Henderson picked the ball up, gave it to Salah and ran in behind and Salah looked to find him, something to make them move. But we were just allowing them to be very, very comfortable in their defensive shape. And it's not the fault of any one individual. It's more of a team thing where you just want somebody to take a little bit of a look around and think, this is where they're strong. We're playing to their strengths. They've got three lads and they're more than comfortable if we're slinging in crosses. Let's try something a little bit different here. Let's actually get at them, not settle for a cross. And the couple of times we did that, we caused absolute pandemonium in their box. So the patterns were set early in this game for me.
When you think about teams who are equipped to change up a set of tactics. And when you think about teams who are equipped to actually do that exact thing that you're talking about, which is go directly at a defence. I mean, Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, Luis Diaz, all of these guys can carry a ball with threat, and so can our fullbacks. And yeah, I agree with you completely. I was frustrated in extremis by the constant crossing. And I'm talking here about Trent and Robbo as well. It was like, what were you thinking was going to happen there, lads? We can't always isolate a lad at the back post who's 4'2", who can tap a ball home, because that's not going to happen when you've got 79 defenders. And that's exactly how they're set up, you know. So
when they're playing a back five with wing backs that are tucking in as full backs, you're not getting that space at the back post. What you're getting is either Robbo crossing to Salah, who's got Davies in front and Sessegnon behind, or Trent crossing for Diaz, who's then got Romero in front and Emerson Royale behind, or you sling it in towards Mane, he's got Dyer plus one of the other two centre-backs coming in on top of him. And, you know, the few times that we worked the ball in field and Thiago just thought, right, I'm going to run at the teeth of this defence here. And all you're looking for him to do is just commit a man, commit one of those defenders, and then someone make a run into that space that defender's left. And, you know, in the penalty box, anything can happen. You can get contact and it could be a penalty. You get a dodgy handball or like a lucky handball. You can get a shot away, whatever it is. Commit those defenders, draw them out. This idea of just letting them sit in with the two central midfielders who, again, both big units in Højbjerg and Bentancur, collecting the second balls on the edge of the box, and they weren't looking to do anything other than hoof them away. Because they were like, right, if you're going to cross, we're going to have this central block of five, all big lads. Then we're going to have our wingers come back with our wing backs. So we're going to have four men in those wide areas. And we're going to stop you playing in field if we want to, or if you put the ball into the box, we're going to have the numbers in there. And we didn't seem like we had that little bit of creative spark that you were looking at. Now, if Trent has a normal Trent game going forward, maybe it's not an issue.
I think you may well have put your finger on it there, and it may well be the same with the man on the other flank. And we'll find out the truth of that, or the proof of that pudding, as we go on looking at the details of the match. And Harry, you and I'll finish it out to the end of the first half, because soon after Trent's bit of cover on Son, which is where we left off, we do have an opportunity, and there's a deep ball in, and a poor Sessegnon header is back towards the goal. The keeper has to kind of claw it away, and Mo's nearly in on top of that. And it's a bit of kind of comedy capers back there in their defence, and, you know, a different type of ball, actually. Immediately you can see the danger that it can cause. 31 minutes, however, the ball came to Thiago from a free. His ball into Diaz was, you know, classic Thiago, kind of curling right on his noggin. He heads it down, but Sadio can't quite get to the knockdown. Now, there should have been a yellow for Davies. He was in late on Mo. It wasn't even a foul given from the best TM. That's in 36 minutes. Trent has a free. Dyer has to get his head, shoulder to clear it soon after that. And on 38 minutes from that Trent corner, this is a real opportunity. Virgil's up. He's up higher than everybody else, as you would expect. And he makes great contact, but it hits the top of the bar and goes over. That is kind of a real opportunity, and one of those ones that wouldn't register, actually, ironically, as a chance on target, if we're being honest about these kind of things. Thiago has a ball into Sadio on 39 minutes. This guy, when he wow, can he pick a pass? It leads to a free on the right of the D. That eventually breaks to Thiago again. He cuts in, beats a guy, has a shot. Ball pings around a bit. There's another corner on 41 minutes. Diaz plays the ball into Sadio. He gets the return, drives it at goal. Fantastic save. 42 minutes, they broke. Because of course, and Højbjerg gets a shot that hits the outside of the base of Ali's right post. I think he'd have gotten there, Harry, but it was a bit of a kind of a wake-up call of, like, you know, these are really, really dangerous on the break. Yeah. Michael Oliver added a minute, which when I was trying to do the sums on all the stoppages and all the time wasting, and Tottenham were right into that time wasting from early on, having a bit of a roll around, doing a bit of a cry on the ground, taking their sweet time about everything from kickoffs to free kicks. It seemed, I thought, a little bit daft, but in keeping with the referee's performance. Talk to me about that second half, and anything you want to lean into specifically.
Yeah, no, it just felt like I was fairly happy with the sort of the level of intensity, like I mentioned at the start. I sort of felt like the tempo of the passing was good. Yes, there were sort of a few too many aimless crosses for my liking, but I did think that there were a couple of our players who were trying to commit sort of Spurs defenders, draw them out a little bit. You mentioned Thiago there being one of them who can do that, sort of those feints that he can put in and sort of feign to shoot. But I was hoping for a deflected shot, anything like that could have sort of maybe caused a little bit of chaos. The ball sort of bobbling around, a handball like Dave mentioned there. Those sorts of things that you need. Even the set pieces as well. Sort of we're very aware of sort of our sort of form from set pieces this season. So when Virgil hit the bar, when Virgil hit the top of the bar like that, you're just thinking on another day, is that going to clip off the underside and go in? Is it going to be one of those? It felt like they were at every opportunity finding a way to sort of throw their bodies in front of any shots that we did create as well. And Højbjerg shooting from distance, I've been told by Southampton fans for many years not to worry too much about that. I think Liverpool have already suffered from one of those long range sort of Højbjerg wonder goals in our sort of last couple of seasons. So I think Ali did have it covered. But yeah, I was hoping for an impactful team talk at half time, Trev, the likes of which we've seen in recent weeks, trying to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more creative in sort of our play. But finding it hard to be too critical of the team. And I think that context of how often we're playing and sort of the shift that we put in midweek was already sort of starting to go cross my mind. I was thinking about Keita as sort of, it felt like we did need a midfielder to commit them, to really run at them, to drive at them, and we don't necessarily have those in that team. So you were looking at Keita as the dribbler that we know he can be, as being maybe an option there. So I was wondering whether or not he'd get a chance a little bit earlier on. But aside from that, I found it sort of hard to be too critical of Liverpool in that first half. I felt like the approach was correct, and I was just hoping that these passes, the final balls that were slightly overhit or slightly missing their man, that eventually they'd work that out.
That's exactly where I was in terms of my first half assessment. But David, it appears I might have missed something. You thought there might have been a penalty shout?
Yeah, so just before they broke down and Højbjerg had that shot that hit the post, they had the ball. No, it was Trent won the ball back on the edge of their box, and Ben Davies just seemed to haul him down as Trent went to get the ball.
Right, okay.
Davies had the ball back to Trent. Trent puts his foot in, gets the ball, and Davies just holds him down. We got no replay of it. There was no VAR check that was mentioned. And yet, our players were talking to the referee about it, and nothing got mentioned. No replay, nothing. It was bizarre.
It was totally blanked on BT because we didn't even see it. Yeah, we didn't even see that. I mean, I have a few myself where I was like, well, what's going on? But that actually sounds like one I'd love to see again.
Next thing, I don't know if it was a penalty because we didn't get a replay, we didn't get a close up of it or anything. But Trent wins the ball back, goes to move on to it, and Davies seemed to just pull him back. And then next thing, they were way up the field counter-attacking, and you're like, well, hang on a sec now. There's a couple of our lads stopped looking for a penalty, and they're motoring on down the field. You think, oh, well, they're going to show a replay. Surely there'll be a replay here, and we'll get a VAR check when this ball goes dead. And it just didn't go dead. Nothing got looked at. It was absolutely bizarre.
That is odd. And, the pattern that we talked about, second half starts, our early press is good. We're forcing errors from them. There were a couple of early chances, a decent Henderson knockdown from a Virgil Diag. Trent has a shot in the follow-up to that. That led to a corner. We get nothing from that. eventually another little bit of play carries on, and we end with a dangerous Trent cross from the right and a not so good one from Robbo from the left. That's about the 50-minute mark. On 52, Royale puts in a cross, but Robbo blocks it for a corner. And on 53, they pick up a yellow. I think it's Dyer, sort of a rugby tackle on Mo. It was either Dyer or Davies. I can't remember because, again, I was sort of distracted by other things. Trent versus Sessegnon, fantastic. Just 54 minutes. He does really good. The ball goes out for a corner or whatever. And then a minute later, Dave, they are 1-up. Now, basically what happens here is the keeper plays the ball forward. Eventually Kane takes a long ball down. He has time. He's not particularly stiffly challenged. He does what he does as possibly the best target man in the Premier League. It pains me to say it, but you gotta give credit where it's due. He's kind of immensely dangerous in these situations. So he takes the ball down, gets it under control. He's left unchallenged. He's running at us in a sort of diagonal way from right to left. He's unchallenged. He plays the ball into Sessegnon on the left, whose cross is unchallenged. And then Son arrives in the middle to tap the ball home. And guess what? Unchallenged. Now, if we're going to divvy blame up around here, there's a whole fucking side of lads who need a slap. If we're being honest, it's not good from almost everybody.
It's not. I would say he kind of ghosts in front of Fabinho as he moves from right to left across the box, but the ball is on his right side and Fab is on his left. And I'm guessing Fab just didn't think he could get to the ball. Robbo, who was in the right back spot, did what he should have done and went with Son when Son made the inside move, assuming that was going to be the pass that Kane would play. And nobody had tracked Ryan Sessegnon. Nobody had bothered the whole to make a run to track Ryan Sessegnon. Now, he's playing as the left wing back. That falls under the realm of the right-sided midfielder who's prancing about in the middle of the field. And Sessegnon is in, so Robbo then has to turn and go back out to try and commit to him. And as he does, as he takes a step, Sessegnon picks the right option, plays it in, and Son is standing in 3 yards of space in all directions. I'd like to understand why Fabinho didn't just make a tackle, like even just foul him. Just foul him. You're going to get a yellow card at some point anyway. You're lucky you didn't have one in the first half. Just foul him and take a yellow card. That's the second time this season Fabinho has done that. But it's also the second time, well, it's actually far more than the second time, but it's the second time in a goal where we've had a situation where Fabinho has let someone just ghost in front of him and someone else hasn't tracked a runner. And I don't know, it's just poor. It's poor all round. We seemed a little bit at times tonight, a little bit ragged in some of our positional play defensively. And there seemed to be quite a few times where lads were just in really strange positions.
Well, it's probably understandable, Dave. Like, just again, for context, you've already pointed it out. We were switched about because of a previous kind of corner situation. So the lads were inverted, the fullbacks were inverted. Now, it's no excuse, end of story, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But when you look at where lads are, like, where you look at where Trent is when the goal is conceded, where you look at where centre halves are, where you look at where their left back are, right back, left back situation where Robbo is, everybody's just that bit off. Nobody's where they should fucking be. And so, like I said, yeah, I totally get what you're saying in terms of the tracking of the Sessegnon run, but the lads central, you'd like to think they could cope with what wasn't exactly the most direct ball or scary, pacey, ridiculously well delivered pass in the world. And by the way, Heung-min Son is their second biggest threat, so we should have eyes on, surely. So there's a lot there, and it probably is because we were a little bit twisted about it.
The six lads who don't put as my mother would say, they didn't put their best foot forward. in that
Yeah,
situation. But there's only one of them that it's because of a lack of effort. The rest of them is just bad decision making. There's one of them it's a lack of effort, and that's when you've got one person not pulling the weight and others kind of out of position or trying to get back into position, things get messy. And look, it is what it is. But when Heung-min Son is stood in the middle of our box with 3 yards of space around him, and I disagree. I think he's their biggest threat. I think he's their best player. I think he's genuinely world class.
Yeah.
You've got to ask questions everywhere of how has he made that run? Robbo's gone with him, and by the time Robbo turns to turn back, no one else thinks, oh, you know what I should do? I should try and get in there and block across to Son.
Yeah.
It's poor. It is poor. It's poor all round.
It is really poor all round. And Harry, I mean, we try to grab a bit of hold of the match. Ibu has a header over from a Robbo free kick on 58. In that same moment, however, Royale puts a ball across to Sessegnon at the back post. That same back post again, his volleyed cross is volleyed wide of the near post by Son. So we nearly had a carbon copy bullshit situation going on. And I'm here thinking, oh my God, like if I had hair to pull out, it would be gone. Trent puts a bit of deep cross in, forces a corner at 60 minutes. We get nothing from that. Thiago puts a great ball into Henderson. His cross goes out for a corner. There's a Diaz shot blocked. We decide we're going to shake it up. Now, I'm going to pause here because I want to talk about this because this is huge, right? This is how we try to influence the game. And Jurgen's decision is to take Tsimikas and Jota on and bring Robbo and Henderson off. Now, immediately you're looking at those two, and obviously they're not like for like as a pair. So we're going to have to change our shape around a little bit. I do like when Jurgen goes for it in this way and we say, you know, you're not carrying any threat to us on any kind of a regular basis, so we can afford to deal with your counter-attacking style and keep our extra attackers. But we have to wonder, I mean, if this is going to be the correct call. Of course, if we get the goal, it is. And you have to say, I'm just going to take you right up to that goal, Harry. You have to say that, 68 minutes, Tsimikas, he's only on the pitch about 5. He picks up a yellow. 69 minutes. Sessegnon's holding Mo back. He gets a yellow. Mo has a shot blocked. Trent has a shot blocked. 72-minute mark. But we do go level on 73. It's Diaz. He cuts inside. He kind of goes past 2 men, drives a shot. It's headed to, I think, the right middle, but it ends up deflected to the left side. To be fair to Lloris, he's got no chance. But it's incisive, it's deliberate, it's intentional in terms of the drive of the lad in question. So it was massively enjoyable from our point of view. I want you to just talk about that first half there of that first half and tell me what you think around the goal and tell me what you think around the substitutions.
Yeah, no, I think ragged is the right word to sort of describe the defending that we were seeing for the concession of the first goal, and then that chance that you mentioned where Sessegnon cuts it back to Son and he just can't quite get his feet in the right position to try and guide it towards goal. But that 10-minute period, we did look a little bit ragged. We looked a little bit leggy, and you're wondering whether or not sort of Spurs seem to have sort of energy from nowhere. But then again, you do think that they've been planning for this all week, that they haven't played midweek. You suddenly realise that perhaps they have been conserving a little bit of energy for these counters, and then you worry a little bit about whether or not they're going to be as efficient as they were from time to time in their counters. So that was a worry. Having said that, the substitutions were a little bit interesting. I mean, Jota makes perfect sense. You're almost wondering if it's quite as simplistic as, well, Tsimikas is a different type of crosser. Jota, we know he's effective in the air. I mean, if we see him intent on slinging in these crosses, and I think we broke some records tonight in terms of sort of how many crosses we put in comparison with previous matches for a number of seasons, actually, in terms of the attempted crosses. part of me was thinking, well, okay, Jota, we've seen him struggle for form, but one thing he is able to provide is a predatory moment where he'll pop up with a goal as you need him to, useful in the air. And Tsimikas is a player I think that this season we have said on occasion perhaps hasn't always sort of enjoyed more opportunities than maybe he deserves, because I think there's been a couple of showings that he's put in the season where you think, well, on merit, perhaps he's worth a chance here, but sort of the way in which Robbo has raised his level after a certain period of the season, I suppose that makes sense. So I was wondering if Robbo had a knock, if there was some sort of injury, or if it was just a case of giving him a little bit of a rest, because he was another one of these players who has completely run himself into the ground for us in terms of the shift that he puts in, game in, game out. So I wasn't against that change. I was slightly a little bit concerned about sort of how effective they could be on the counter, and us just leaving the two men in there. But with how proactive, how aggressive Konate can be at times, and Virgil as well, and the fact that Thiago and Fab are sort of the two most responsible of the midfielders that we have, you were thinking, well, we should be able to manage this. And on the whole, I was pretty happy with how they did, to be honest, in that period. So in the end, the goal, hugely satisfying, because I think I tweeted literally about 30 seconds before the goal that it felt like they were going to block everything, and surely they couldn't block everything for the remainder of the game. So the fact that it came from a huge deflection like that, but somebody taking the initiative, being more aggressive, being more direct, and it had to be Diaz, I suppose, in terms of sort of how much of a chaos agent, to use that phrase again, that he's been for us over the past few weeks. It's just feels incredible to sort of talk about him as though he's such a settled member of the squad. But I remember listening to yourself and Dave discuss the signing when it was made, and sort of contemplating how many appearances we'd see from him, and the fact that he's been so integral for us still feels slightly surreal. But it was hugely satisfying. How many of those goals have we seen from our sort of title rivals over the years? Deflected shots like that. The roar for that goal as well. His reaction as well. Full of passion, full of intensity, and you just hope that would spur us on.
These are things now I'm leaning into, which are massive intangibles, but you will both remember where in 08-09, where Torres and Gerrard were leading the charge towards a potential league challenge. There was an atmosphere in Anfield which you can only describe as sort of positively negative, because the tension was so fucking high that it left a kind of borderline. It was too much. It was too intense, and the negativity came out too quickly. And I felt it was quite oppressive. 13-14, it was back again, because again, the weight of this, not having done this thing, was so huge. But I have to say, I thought, listening to the crowd and the way that we reacted at full time and all the rest of it, I was kind of proud of the crowd. It's like we've sort of all grown together as a club, as a fan base, as a crowd in the ground, and understood that, it's not done. And realistically speaking, we need City to lose. And well done, the lads, for getting back into the game. And I did like that at full time, but I'd love to say there's loads to talk about between now, this point where we score, and the end of the game. But honestly, if you just both bear with me, they bring on Sanchez for Sessegnon. Fab gets a yellow. Kulusevski is substituted for Winks on 84. They just keep wasting time. There's a substitution where we bring on Naby at 87 minutes. And again, it's a big ask for Naby to impact the game at that stage. It's a weird one. I wouldn't mind getting both of your takes on it, because if I was looking for a game changer at that stage, I would have thought it would be Divock. But, what the hell do I know? There was a really good cut in and pass by Thiago, because of course, to Trent, but Trent couldn't quite get there. Thiago looked utterly mystified by this. There was again another chance then, a Mo shot, a really great opportunity for a Mo Salah classic. He found himself in that central, like coming from right to central position, an opportunity to curl the ball to the top corner, but it got deflected like so many fucking Mo efforts have this year. Went for a corner, we get nothing from it. 5 minutes at it, they bring on Bergwijn. Virgil sees him off like a child within a couple of minutes, and Ali gathers it. 83 minutes, Naby picks up a yellow. There is a chance for Winks, who plays the ball into Heiberg. There's a knockdown and comes to nothing. And then right at the death, right at the end of injury time, Diaz was in at the back post. He gets a touch. He gets around the man. He takes an effort. It leads to a corner. We get a chance to take the corner, but it breaks and it leads to nothing. So there was an opportunity at the death. And I'm just going to put this to you, Dave, and then I'll give Harry a chance to talk about it. When we come out of that, then I'll finish up, Dave, with you, and I'll finish up then the show with Harry. Can I just ask your take on this Divock Origi substitution? I don't want to pretend to be any sort of a galaxy brain prick who knows more than Jurgen. I don't. And I don't want to lean into the fact that the crowd were cheering for him. That's bollocks. It's just, he was on the programme cover, and I was thinking, right, he's a big moment lad. And I'm thinking, when we're doing this shit that we're doing right at the death, and we have a corner right at the death, and we've got a lad who's a unit like Dave right at the death, it just struck me as weird that we brought on Naby at that stage, because what can Naby really do in 87 minutes? Do you know what I'm saying with this? It's not like I don't rate what he offers the team. I just didn't know if that was really the call. But, you know, like I said, what do I know? What was your take on that?
I think the reason it was Naby was because he wanted to bring Fab off. I think it was more a case of getting Fab off the pitch and avoiding any potential red card situation than the want to actually bring Naby on with the thought that he might change the game. But again, could we have gambled a bit more?
I think we could. We could have brought Fab off for Div.
For Divock, and just said to Trent, right, you go and sit in midfield. You sit in midfield, that's what you're doing from now on, because he was basically playing in midfield by then anyway. And yet taking Fab off and brought Divock on. And it's not even, you know, obviously Divock is a big moment guy, but more to the point, he's a big guy. He's a unit. He's 6'3". And we're humping crosses into the box to a bunch of lads who are 5'9". And like it's a situation like today where we desperately miss Bobby.
Yeah.
Like that was the type of game that when Jota came on, as I said earlier, like I thought Divock made more sense at that point, but Bobby would have been the perfect one to come on there. Because when you have Mane, Salah, Jota, Diaz, there's an awful lot of crossover between what they do. And Salah's obviously a great chance creator. Diaz is a creator, but there's no central creator in a Mane-Jota pairing. And they're both sort of looking to get into the same spots. And when Jota realised, like, Sadio's in the central role, Jota didn't seem to know where he was meant to be at a lot of times. So when we had the ball on the right and we were looking to cross it in, Jota and Diaz were basically standing on each other's toes at the back post. Yeah. Or he was getting in Sadio's way in the middle, whereas with Bobby will play more as a 10. He'll drop short, he'll create an option, create a passing angle, whatever it is. Bobby to link things up, I think today would have made a massive difference, and I think that's kind of what we missed. But yeah, like when it got down to it with 3 minutes left, I would have thought Divock is the call here. But at the same time, maybe Klopp is looking at the bigger picture and thinking, you know what? We came into this game needing City to drop points. We're not leading the title race here. Now, we are top as things stand, but we came into this game needing City to drop points at some place. That's still the situation. The only thing that's changed is we needed them to draw or lose. Now we need them to lose. That's the only thing that's changed here. Yeah. And City don't draw a ton of games anyway. They have been beaten 3 times this season. They've been beaten 9 times in all competitions, if you count the Community Shield. City have lost games this season. They've lost more games than they've drawn. So maybe Klopp just thought, you know what, a point is a point. I'd rather take a point than put Divock on, have 5 up front, and risk getting done on a counter-attack. Because at the end of the day, a point is better than nothing.
Well, that's not a bad point because we nearly did get mugged. And Harry, I want to give you your take on the substitutions as well because it's going to be the talking point, let's be honest. And it doesn't just have to be about Divock Origi. It just has to be about whatever you think the effectiveness of them was. And again, it's not, listen, and again, I hope everybody gets this. When we talk about these things, we are talking about our opinions. We are not putting ourselves above Jurgen Klopp or telling anyone what he should have done. That's other podcasts that do that. They're obviously idiots, but we are allowed to say what we think and what we felt at the time and what we still feel perhaps might have been more effective. And as you examine the vital second half substitutions, including Tsimikas, including Naby Keita at that late point, and including Diogo Jota, did they jar with you at the time, or can you see exactly what it was he was trying to do, maybe in a way that perhaps himself and Dave aren't quite getting around our heads around? Or
no, they all make sort of logical sense in terms of sort of what the players could have brought to the game. I think I'd already mentioned sort of if it was up to me, maybe I'd have brought Keita on a little bit earlier, just because I thought maybe that was what we were missing from midfield, and we could sort of get away with maybe not having one of Fab or Thiago on the pitch, maybe even sort of Naby and Thiago for 20 minutes, just to see if they could be a little bit more incisive. I agree on Divock, but also, I'd mentioned Bobby earlier on. It felt like a game for Bobby. It felt like one of these games where you just pop up, and sort of the way in which he plays that role would have been useful for us in those moments. A different kind of threat, dragging people out of position, trying to make them lose their discipline, offering them a completely different type of sort of challenge for however long. So it is a game where you sort of maybe slightly miss that, but I can understand sort of the faith that Klopp would have in Jota to deliver one of those big moments. From the quotes of here that have emerged after the game, he's talking about how he's disappointed, but not as disappointed as the players. That they're quite down, but it's one more point than they had before the game. So I wonder whether or not he is looking at it from that perspective and thinking, look, we didn't lose another point, and Dave and yourself are right. We needed City to drop points. That's still the case, and you just got to hope that whatever psychological trauma they sustained at the hands of Real Madrid is enough to throw a spanner in the works a little bit in these fixtures to come. I think there are some complicated games in there, not as tough as the running that we've had certainly, but I think there are some complicated games in there. Now West Ham are out of a chance to win a European final. I'm hoping Declan Rice can take some of that anger that he directed at the referee in the tunnel and channel it into a performance against City, because we always knew we were going to need a favour from one of these sides, and for City to drop points, and that's still the case. And I thought you could see that defiance, as you mentioned, Trev, from the crowd and from Jurgen at the end as well.
I'd like to officially welcome Declan Rice into the conspiracy club.
You're furious.
You can pick up your badge, Deco, at the reception. I'm afraid I won't be meeting you because you had an opportunity to play for my country and you didn't, you prick. So here's where we're going to do. We're going to go to Dave for his final thoughts, and then Harry, and then we'll be out the gap. And Dave, don't let me put words in your mouth. You never have, you never will. But I'm just going to frame something up for you. I still have this sort of faith that there's a possibility of all four. I won't let it go till it's mathematically impossible, because anyone who does that is a bit of what Karl Popek calls a runner. I don't understand it. It's still possible. Surely you should have a little bit of faith in it. We can all do the sums. Everyone understands that it's just become more difficult. But why would you ever give up on this team ever? Have you not been here? Were you not there when X happened and Y happened and Z happened? So I have limited but still very real hope for the remainder of the season. And I don't want to be too down personally on what I just saw. in terms of that game and that result. It may well be the case. And if we're all being honest, Dave, the most realistic thing that was going to happen was that probably Liverpool would win their remaining games and City would win their remaining games. If you were to roll the dice on it, or if you were to get your calculator out and get some mathematical guru in, that was the most likely thing, which would have meant that Man City won the league. You said that we needed them to drop points. We do. And I think I've always had the feeling that we needed them to lose, not draw. We needed them to fucking lose a game. So that still remains the case. And let's just see where it takes us. But today's game, I want you to give an overall take on it. Maybe skew your analysis a little bit towards what's left. And do give us at the end of it a bit, if you could, about what's to come from you, because Christ alive, there's a lot left in this season for us.
There is a lot left in the season. And look, if I said to you now, you can lose the title but have the Champions League and the FA Cup, we'd all take it. Every one of us would take it. Every single one of us would take winning a cup treble, because that would be an incredible achievement. And that's what the focus should be on. The league is a bonus. At this point, the league has been a bonus for a while because City have been ahead of us. And we are waiting or hoping that they'll drop points somewhere. We are hoping that Newcastle or Wolves or West Ham or Aston Villa can do us a favour. The title hasn't been in our hands since the draw with City in the league. If we'd beaten them in the league, then it would be different. And if we'd beaten them in the league, I'd be a lot more disappointed about tonight, because we would have been ahead of them, dropping points and now giving them the advantage where they can go on and win tomorrow and go ahead of us. But the situation remains the same as it did yesterday, the same as it did last week. We need them to drop points. That is still possible. They are not a perfect team. This is a very good City team. I don't believe it's a great City team. It's not as good as the team in 17-18 and 18-19. It's not that good.
It's not as good as our team, if we're being perfectly honest.
And it's not as good as our team. We've lost 3 games all season. They've lost 9. Yeah. We've played 3 more and lost 6 less. Like, we've conceded the same number of goals as them, despite playing now 5 games more than them. We're a better team than they are. They've just had some good luck when we haven't. And we're also, we're competing on 4 fronts. We knocked them out of the FA Cup. We're in the Champions League final. They're not. We won the League Cup. They went out early in the League Cup. We're a better team than City. And if we finish second and win the 3 cups, that will prove that. If we finish second and win the FA Cup and League Cup, we're still a better team than them. I'm sorry, we just are. This is not one of those seasons where the best team wins the league. This is one of those seasons where too many draws just hurt us. We were the better team in 18-19 as well, by the way. Like, we were better than them that year. We were better than them in 19-20, and we're better than them this season. Now, last season goes out the window because of the injuries, but we have been a better team than City for a while. What would hurt is, being 4 years into this incredible run of being, I believe, the best team on the planet and only having 1 league title. But if we've got 2 Champions Leagues and an FA Cup and a League Cup, they can have the title. Dude, celebrate it.
I couldn't agree more. Big Ears is the one. Big Ears is
That's
the one.
It. Look, there's certain clubs where the European Cup is what matters. It's what truly matters and defines who that club are. The European royalty. It's Real Madrid. Real Madrid have won 7 Champions Leagues in the last 23 years. They've only won 8 league titles in that time. Their focus is the Champions League. When they won their 4 titles in 5 years in the Champions League, they won 1 league title in that run. So, that's where their focus is. Bayern Munich sack managers who don't win the Champions League. Pep Guardiola is seen as a failure at Bayern because he didn't win the Champions League. AC Milan, now they're trying to get themselves back to the mountaintop. They've obviously had quite the collapse with, the decline of Italian football. But, You ask an AC Milan fan, what would you rather win, Serie A or the Champions League? They take the Champions League. Ask any Milan great, what medal matters more to you? One of your Serie A Scudetto titles or your European Cups? And every one of them will take the European Cups. Paolo Maldini won 5 of them, and he says they're his proudest possession. Like, we're one of those clubs as well. We also just happen to be the team that has been the best team in England over the course of the last 50 years. And if it comes to it, I'd much rather have the European Cup. And here's the thing, right? And I said this in 2019, and it was true then, and it's true now. City won a domestic treble in 18-19. We won a European Cup, and nobody gave a shit what they'd done. Nobody cared. They didn't care. Because when it comes down to it, Manchester City, the City Football Group, Abu Dhabi's oil riches, that whole project, the whole thing, from top to bottom, is aimed at one thing, winning the European Cup. And every single season they don't win the European Cup is a failure for them. Every single season.
And if you didn't know that, and if you couldn't get your head around that, Pep Guardiola had to field questions this week about whether or not it was a failure. Because everybody knows that that's why he's here. And everybody knows that that's why they're spending all the money in the world. And everybody knows that the reality is that the question needs to be answered in the affirmative.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And just to emphasize before I finish what I said about Mane and Salah earlier on, about how, they were both poor today and they've had some poor games recently, and Mo's form has dipped without question. Mo has already played over 5,000 minutes this year for club and country. Sadio's played almost 4,700 minutes for club and country. Like, those two boys are shattered. They're shattered. They've been run into the ground, and it's season after season for them. There's no easy miles for them. Like, it's when they go and play with their national teams, they're not getting the same kind of comforts that, let's say, the England lads get, or the Germans, or the Spanish, or the French. The Senegalese national team, they don't have that type of money. Neither do the Egyptians. They're not working in the same circumstance. They're not pampered in the same way after they have those long flights back to do that. So just factor in, before you start criticising the two boys, what they've done for us, what they continue to do for us, and just how fucking difficult it is for them to do it. As for Spurs, last thing on them, I will say this. Good performance tonight. Great tactical game plan. Carried it out quite well. But at the end of the day, they're parking the bus in the last 5 minutes when they needed the win just as much as we did. Because now they're a point behind Arsenal. Arsenal have a game in hand on them. If Arsenal win that game in hand, which is tomorrow against... Who are Arsenal playing tomorrow? Leeds, who are garbage, at home. So Arsenal should win that. Arsenal will be 4 points clear. Meaning, not only do Tottenham then have to beat them on Thursday night, they then have to hope Arsenal go and either drop points at Newcastle or at home to Everton. So, while it's a good result for Spurs, it doesn't really help them in the grand scheme of trying to get top 4. So, there's that thing to consider as well. And Ollie Holt, who just seems like a terrible fella. Spurs were brilliant to watch today. Like, there's a lot of things you can say about Spurs. I don't think you can claim they were brilliant to watch today. Defending with 9 men isn't really brilliant to watch, but Ollie's probably the type of thing who, watches loose women and reaches for the lube and the tissues, like, he probably goes to Burnley and thinks that's real sexy football, watching. I know the Mr. Dyche is not there anymore, but I'd say when Ollie was feeling real rambunctious with himself and wanted a bit of sexy football, straight down to Turf Moor to watch what Dyche's lads were doing. What fucking planet do you live on?
He was listening to the Nolan sisters compilation as he that's a weird take, Dave.
He's a strange fella. This is a man that went on television and wore an Alice band when he was in his mid-40s, so what can you expect? As for me, Two-Footed Pod Monday and Tuesday, Daily Red Monday, Tuesday, then I'm away from Wednesday morning until next Wednesday, so I will miss The Villa game on Tuesday night, I will miss the cup final, and I think I miss Southampton as well. And there'll be nothing from me for just over a week. So for the first time in 5 years,
I was going to say fucking years.
I'm taking a wee break for a week from podcasting, and hopefully it proves to be good luck. I hope to. I won't be doing the podcast, but I will absolutely watch the cup final, and hopefully a bit of French luck or something. I don't know what I'll buy some frogs' legs and rub them or something. I don't know what you do in France to get a bit of luck. But if anyone can tell me, let me know. But I have a quiet week coming up, which is I'm actually really looking forward to it, because I'm a bit talked out because Liverpool have played 58 games this season.
Yeah. And
we've probably done the post-match on close to 50 of them. Probably about 45 myself. You're probably about 48, 49, because I missed a couple of league ones, you missed a couple of cup ones. It's a lot of games, and I know people just think it's just sitting down and talking, but when you're watching the game, you're trying to make notes, you're trying to remember things, you're trying to keep your emotions under control so that you can actually focus on what you're watching, and hopefully everybody appreciates it. But I'll be back after Southampton.
Don't you worry, Dave. I'm still relatively fresh for the running.
Well, that's it. That's it. You took the middle of the season off.
I was
Sethi with the fresh legs. Here we fucking go, lads. And by the way, Dave, whatever with the frog legs, they only have so much impact. What you need to do, just for your own crack, is lick a toad. That has a whole different effect. And Harry, let me finish the show with you, my friend, by asking you the same, to give your take on what transpired today in the context of what is to come and your overall feeling around that. If you've any specifics you want to bore down into in relation to the events of the match that we didn't cover, feel free, and do finish up, if you would, by letting folks know what's going to be going on with you, because again, I know you're going to be front and center for the next week or so.
Yeah, find it hard to be too critical, to be honest. I think we've all tried to sort of contextualize it, the way in which the team has performed, the shift that we've seen from individual players as well, especially some of the more sort of talismanic figures in the side as well. We've entered 7th of May with still everything to play for, and I think the way in which the side responded to adversity in midweek, and when you compare that to how City responded to adversity in midweek, is sort of very different challenge, but still in those really high pressure moments. I think the way in which we responded sort of shows you sort of where this side is, how intelligent the side is, how calm and composed the side is as well. So I think they'll be disappointed, but I do believe they'll be defiant, and I imagine the coaches will be able to instill that into them. In terms of Spurs, yeah, I mean, I thought they played well. They had a game plan. Was surprised that they didn't go for it a little bit more, as Dave was mentioning there. I think there is. They did sort of need the win, to be honest, to sort of really sort of get their top four sort of hopes, keep them alive. And I see some sort of quotes after the game as well. I think they were asking Klopp, the Spurs journalist asked Klopp if he was impressed with the way that Tottenham defended. And to be honest, I think these quotes are pretty measured, to be honest, but he said that I'm sorry, I'm the wrong person for that. I don't like this kind of football. It's my personal problem here. I think they're world-class players, and I think they should do more for the game. I think the game against Liverpool, they're 36% possession, but it's my problem. I can't coach that. That's why I don't do it. So yes, world-class players block all the balls. Really difficult. So I think that, teams are perfectly entitled to play however they want to against us. I've got nothing against that. And coaches don't have to be enamored by those approaches either, right? So yeah, Spurs came and they had a game plan. They were taking the draw with 5 to go, and that's what they got in the end. But I find it very hard to be too critical of this side. I think Karl Matcher had mentioned it earlier in the evening. It's a side that's dropped only 2 points in the league since January 2nd. So you really can't. I find it too critical to be too tough tonight. And as I think Dave mentioned right at the start, yeah, if we do end up coming a little bit short in the league, it won't be down to games like this. It'll be earlier in the season. But other than that, there should be a rival recon ahead of the Villa game on Tuesday. And then I think, we're still to work out the next couple of Raws. But I should be on them over the next few weeks, trying to dovetail in for Dave, who's having a well-earned rest, I'd say.
Let's be honest. Everybody has noticed you warming up there, Harry.
Me and Divock.
Yeah, you've put your hand up, lad. You've put your hand up. So I look forward to working with both of the lads. I hope Dave enjoys the absolute hell out of the week away from football. I hope when we return from it that we'll be talking about wins under the belt and looking forward to wins to come and the potential. I'm going to keep saying it till it's not real, that we can become the 4 trophy Reds. I've been Trev Downey. That was Hari Sethi. That was Dave Hendrick. This is Raw, and we'll be back very, very soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.